While this is not Bumblebee, it is certainly better than what the Bayformers eventually became. Welcome back, Transformers fans, to my review of Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Optimus Prime has come a-calling, and he is giving all of us 90s kids validation as Beast Wars is finally recognized and brought into the live-action Transformers franchise in this 90s globe-trotting adventure where the Autobots are introduced to a whole new class of Transformers, the Maximals, who join them as allies in the existing battle for Earth. And after the original 2007 Transformers up until Bumblebee, it was rough being a kid who loved Transformers, who just wants to see giant robots punching each other. The franchise was not in good hands, but after what Travis Knight delivered with Bumblebee, hopes were high in introducing the franchise that introduced me to Transformers as a whole was very exciting for. This film does not have the heart of Bumblebee. It doesn't feel as grounded or as personable, but it does have heart, and it does have the distinction of having great focus on the Transformers while maintaining a really streamlined, simple narrative. This is not an overtly long film, but it's also one that doesn't necessitate itself to be. This is a pretty simple, straightforward narrative that introduces a few humans to a bunch of Transformers and just allows the Transformers and their whole story and their connection to Cybertron and all the sci-fi spectacle things that come with it to be the focus of the film. And so Rise of the Beasts, while not my favorite of the franchise, and we'll get to it, is for me a win that keeps this franchise on track. And one of the biggest reasons for that is, like I said, the focus is on the Transformers. It starts with the Transformers, introducing us to the inciting incident, having us understand and care for the stakes, and then our human characters in Anthony Ramos and Dominic Fishback, they're just ways to bring us into more Transformers and connect the Maximals to the Autobots. And because we're bringing the Autobots and Maximals together, two different factions within the Transformers that have such different histories and views on the world, being here on Earth, having to run away from Cybertron, dealing with humans, it allows for interesting dynamics to be created, particularly between Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal, one that reveres and looks up to the classic Autobots leader and comes to find he's not necessarily the person or the Autobot he thought he was. Ron Perlman does an excellent job with this dynamic, so does Peter Cullen, obviously, and it mirrors very much the arc and relationship dynamic between Noah, played by Anthony Ramos, and Pete Davidson's Mirage. How these two mirror each other is really interesting, and we're allowed to see a more flawed and more introspective Optimus Prime that honestly is really refreshing. And Optimus Primal that has been named and is a living homage to Optimus Prime, there's just something really interesting about that. I don't think the film necessarily explores these dynamics to their fullest potential. Really, the destination, the ultimate payoff for them, doesn't necessarily feel like the best version of what it could be. But for the bulk of its runtime, for the ideas that the film does introduce between how different these two factions are in their worldviews, it makes for an interesting story and it makes you engaged with these characters. Going back to actually being interested in the characters, and Optimus Prime is inarguably the protagonist of this film. Maybe he shares that spotlight with Anthony Ramos, but he is undoubtedly the one driving this narrative forward, the one that goes through the biggest arc. And not only can you tell the Transformers apart, they have distinct personalities, from RC to Mirage, played by Pete Davidson in what is genuinely his best performance, to, of course, everyone's favorite, Bumblebee. But my personal favorites are the Maximals. I just love the look of them, from Ron Perlman's Optimus Primal to Michelle Yeoh's Air Razor. All of them just look so distinct and so great. Seeing them in action is amazing, and the action is glorious. Big, swooping shots of gigantic robots punching each other. Does that sound simple? It is. Does that sound like something you are not going to like? Don't go watch this film. I will never get tired of watching Transformers punching one another, and particularly in Rise of the Beasts, not only do I care for them as characters, I am invested in the story, and I can tell them apart. I can actually tell what is going on because Stephen Caple Jr., who directed Creed 2 and is now directing this film, he went for the more OG Gen 1 simpler designs of Transformers. He did not overcomplicate things on the visuals, on the narrative, as well as Unicron, who I had no idea was even in this film, but it's fantastic to see him. And Scourge, his general, played by Peter Dinklage, who is essentially the main villain. Unicron is awesome because it's just such an imposing presence and just connects so many ties of the lore of the Transformers that is fully embraced throughout this film. But Unicron is very much in the background. He's very much a presence because he's mentioned. It's Scourge that does the dirty work. It's Scourge that you're there to watch as a villain of this film, and it really works. Again, I'm talking a lot about the Transformers because this film finally allows the Transformers to be the focus, to have a lot of development. So that is just awesome to see. A Transformers movie that focuses on the right things, on the right characters, without actually forgetting the human characters. They have their time to shine. They have an interesting dynamic. They are engaging characters that go on this adventure and really contrast well with the personalities and motivations of our Transformers. But it doesn't lose sight of the epic size and scope that a story like this naturally has. That said, the film does feel a bit familiar in certain beats. And I don't just mean in general, but the film goes for certain elements in the course of the story that we have seen them play these cards at least 3 times in all the other 6 movies at this point. That's like half of the franchise. And so now with 7 movies, they play those cards 4 times. Also, as I said, it's very straightforward. There's not really anything to really sink your teeth into that is concrete besides ideas, besides concepts, besides themes here and there that you're like, that's interesting. The film doesn't really dive into that. It goes for the spectacle and it embraces the grandiose nature, is a summer blockbuster through and through. I say that as a positive for me, but kind of a warning. This is not something that is going to have layers onto it. It's something that is not interested in having layers onto it. While the action is awesome, the last 30 minutes in this film are a chef's kiss of everything you could want as a Transformers fan. They do make you wait for it. As short a movie it is in the context of the Transformers, running at 1 hour and 57, I believe, with one mid-credit scene that is not that interesting, honestly. In between the action, they really make it drag at points. There are moments in this film where information is being fed to us. And while it starts out really interesting, the more we get into the meat of the story through that second act, kind of becomes less interesting. Like they don't have a lot of time to fully develop certain sequences that dive into the connections of the Autobots, the Maximals, into this MacGuffin they're searching for and trying to protect, because this is a MacGuffin story and it really works. It's focused, it gives our characters a clear motivation, a clear goal, but at the same time, it just mentions these certain things, and these certain things happen, but they're not fully delved into. They're not fully explored to their ultimate potential. So on a script level, this isn't going to win any awards. This shouldn't win any awards. But while you'll see a lot of people complaining that the dialogue is corny, and it's a really cheesy movie when it comes to its lessons and its morals. I want that in Transformers. This is what I go to watch Transformers for. All those issues with the film, I stand by them. The warning, this might not be for you. This isn't going to revolutionize the idea of what a Transformers movie can be on the surface. I thoroughly enjoy this, and I would have ranked it even higher than I will in this franchise if not for a certain choice in the final battle that really did not work for me. It makes sense with what they were building up in the film. It makes sense given the ending of the movie, but I just don't want that in my Transformers movie. All that said, as I dive into my final thoughts on Transformers Rise of the Beasts, it's time for you to start the conversation in the comments below with your thoughts on Rise of the Beasts, on Beast Wars if you grew up watching it, and your thoughts on the Transformers franchise in general. Well, how do you rank them from worst to best? I reviewed Bumblebee when it came out a few years ago, and there's a review for that right here. Or if you just want to talk more movies and TV, this is the place to be. Consider clicking that subscribe button, and you won't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. Is Transformers Rise of the Beasts more than meets the eye? Maybe not. And it does play a few too familiar cards within this franchise. But it more than makes up for it with engaging new characters, crowd-popping action, and a grand scoping story with visuals that invite the big screen experience. I'm giving Transformers Rise of the Beasts a B-. I'm giving Transformers Rise of the Beasts a B-. Thank you so much for watching. Rise of the Beasts may not be a Bumblebee, but it's much better than what the Michael Bay Transformers eventually became. Remember to leave me your thoughts in the comments below and start the discussion, and big shout out to my channel members for always supporting the channel. And until the next one, love each other and love the movies.